What is up, everybody? Welcome back in to Tide Talk Live, powered by the Believe Network, and proud to announce that we are officially presented by FanDuel. If you're not already, sign up for FanDuel. Head on over there. They got some great bets going on for the NFL playoffs, for the college football playoff national championship coming up on Monday night. So just head on over to FanDuel, our official partner here on Tide Talk Live. Excited about that and the opportunity we have with FanDuel. Uh, Excited to kind of dive into some more transfer portal talk as well. Got a lot to talk about. There's so much going on. Today is the final day that players can actually enter the portal. Of course, they still have time to make their commitment to their to the school of their choice. But a lot of portal talk to take place. We'll dive into the conversation of why I think the talk around Alabama football from the national media and even from some of the fans has been a little overblown in terms of the roster movement so far for the Crimson Tide during the all season. But we'll dive into that here in just a minute. We're going to allow more people to get in here to the live show so we can get the live chat rolling. Excited about that. So if you're not already, make sure you are subscribed here on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button and jump in the live chat and give us your thoughts. If you're watching the post-recorded version of the episode, make sure you jump in the comment section and give us your thoughts as well. Once again, we are powered by the Believe Network, which makes us free and available wherever you find your podcast. So if you enjoy listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, wherever you listen to your podcast at, you can find Tide Talk Live, and make sure you subscribe and download there as well. We would greatly appreciate that. So look, going to have a lot of fun, going to have a lot of good conversations. That's why I did a live, because I want to hear from you guys as well, the fans, and just kind of get your reaction to what's happened so far in the transfer portal for Alabama. Of course, I guess we'll just kind of real quick look at some of the guys who are already kind of committed or signed to Alabama from the transfer portal cycle. You have Noah Rogers, the receiver from NC State, Josh Ford, the tight end from Oklahoma State, Caden Strayhorn, Ty Haywood, Devin Tompkins, Caleb Smith, Kendrick Bigley Jones, Caleb Woodson, Carmelo O'Neal, Lorcan Quinn, Adam Watford, and Ethan Strangle. And I think if you look at this list of guys who have committed so far, the main thing that you can see is there's been an emphasis on special teams. You're replacing your long snapper, your punter, and your place kicker. So Coach DeBoer and his staff felt like it was best that they attack the special teams area of their football team, and they've done that by replacing guys at really all three levels of special teams. And then you look at what they're doing in the trenches. Bama fans wanted work done in the trenches on both sides of the football. They've made that a point of emphasis. They've already landed several guys on both lines of scrimmage, whether it's the offensive line or the defensive line. But Alabama is making an effort to improve the trench play for the Crimson Tide heading into 2026. And I know there was a lot of exodus as well on both sides, but I think the coaching staff has done a good job of already having some guys committed. And of course, today and yesterday and this weekend, more portal prospects will be in Tuscaloosa to kind of go through a visit and see where they stand in terms of their potential with the Crimson Tide. And kind of just on that note, we'll kind of stick with guys who are visiting and who could be really important potential gets for Alabama, here down the stretch for the transfer portal. And by the way, I mentioned today is the final day, Friday, January 16th, that guys can officially enter the portal. Now, in terms of when they have to sign and, be at Alabama, the semesters are totally different than what they were, a long time ago. Now they have like a spring two semester. And I think that's around mid February when that session of classes would start at the University of Alabama. So technically, these kids have until mid February to make their decisions and enroll in school and get in class, and then they would be eligible to participate in spring football, which is about, only 50 days away from spring football practice kind of getting underway there in Tuscaloosa. So they still have, almost a month before they actually have to officially sign and enroll in classes for that second part of this spring semester there at the University of Alabama. But some guys who are kind of really big names going on this weekend in Tuscaloosa. Of course, Rayson Delgatti, the interior offensive lineman, projects as a center, most likely, could probably play guard. A redshirt junior from Cal Poly. He's receiving a ton of interest from other powerful programs such as Colorado, Kansas, Michigan, Oklahoma State, Oregon State. So there's some powerful options for Rayson Delgado, and this is one of the more talented FCS players in this transfer portal class. And Alabama is I think in a pretty good shape for him right now. Of course, anything can happen, but he would be a really nice addition to that interior of the offensive line for Alabama. And I'll be honest with you, I think if Rayson Delgado commits to the Crimson Tide, I would be really confident that he's your starting center going in to the 2026 season. That's how high I am on this kid. I think he has a chance to be a really good player for the Crimson Tide. Nick Brooks, another offensive lineman. This is a bigger kid from Texas. This looks more like a Saban offensive lineman at 6'7" and 340 plus pounds, but he played guard at Texas last year as a freshman. Can he be a tackle? Can he be a guard? We'll kind of see. But the Nick Brooks really seems to like Alabama. He's a Georgia native from Grayson High School there in Loganville. A really guy who I think has some good upside, but may need some work. In terms of kind of fixing his body and getting more ready for this Alabama scheme. There's some other offensive lineman, Ethan Fields from Ole Miss. But the guy that I really want to focus on real quick before we kind of dive into the main discussion that I want to talk about in terms of not panicking right now and looking at this Alabama roster going into next season is Terrence Green, one of the top 10 defensive linemen in this portal cycle. The redshirt juniors from originally was at Oregon. He's 6'5", 320, just a massive human being that you could plug into the middle of that Kane Womack defense and almost be a direct replacement for what you're losing in Tim Keenan there at that nose guard position. So that would, to me, is a name to watch if you're an Alabama fan. Terrence Green, like I mentioned, 6'5", 320, really physical player, really strong, and would be a great addition on the defensive line. You bring him in to go with guys like Devin Tompkins, who the way it's kind of looking and what Alabama's lost at the bandit position, this could be a guy who maybe we thought would play more of a defensive end or interior, maybe a defensive tackle type role, could, kind of switch out and go to that bandit position to replace LT Overton. Of course, you lose Keon Keeley to Notre Dame, and Jordan Renaud has entered the portal a couple days ago and has since committed to Ole Miss. So a lot of moving parts there on the defensive line, and getting a guy like Terrence Green, I think, would give you more versatility and flexibility with the other guys you have there on the defensive line heading into next season. All right, guys, before we kind of dive into this, once again, we are presented by FanDuel. Head on over to FanDuel and look at their college football playoff odds. Right now, Monday night, Indiana is a 8.5-point favorite over the Miami Hurricanes in the college football playoff national championship. The over and under set at 47.5. So if you want to make a bet on this game, if you're really feeling like Indiana is a team of destiny, if you're feeling like Indiana is unbeatable, head on over to FanDuel right now and uh, bet on the Hoosiers to come away with a win and hoist their first ever college football playoff national championship trophy. All right, guys. As you can see from the title here, I don't think Alabama fans should panic quite as much about what's happened so far in the portal as they have. And I'm not saying everybody; it's just kind of a thought that I've seen throughout social media and what everybody's been saying in the comment section of our videos. There seems to be a lot of uncertainty. There seems to be a lot of just kind of trepidation about what's going on with Alabama and how the transfer portal has kind of worked for Alabama so far. But to me, what I like about this coaching staff is they have a certain way they're going to attack their roster. And just because it doesn't look like some of the other big name programs in the country doesn't mean it's not the right way or a good way to do it. And what I mean is, look, Texas, there's no question that Texas is out there spending money hand over fist. They get both Hollywood Smothers and Malik Brown. They get Cam Coleman. They get uh, the offensive lineman from Wake Forest yesterday, whose name just escaped me. They are spending money on some big name guys, and that's fine if that's what they want to do. But to me, what the coaching staff at Alabama, what Courtney Morgan, what Kalen DeBoer, what they want to do is they want to have their roster built on the foundation of, look, we want guys who want to be at Alabama from an early age. So their primary focus, it's come out of Courtney Morgan's mouth, is the high school rankings. They want to go to the high school level. They want to find guys that fit what they want to do, that they can develop. Some that are plug and play guys, your five stars like Xavier Crowell, Jira Edwards, Sedarian Morgans, guys that you can probably count on as true freshmen. But then they also want to build depth and build chemistry and build a good solid foundation with young players from the high school ranks. And then they want to focus on player retention. And you can say, well, they didn't do a good job. They lost, nearly 30 players or so to the transfer portal. Okay. But were any of them outside of two or three detrimental losses to, hey, golly, I wish that guy would have stayed. He would have been a starter and a big time player for Alabama in 2026. Well, you look at guys like maybe a Keon Keeley, maybe a Jordan Renaud, maybe a Quay Russaw, maybe a James Smith, and you look at those guys you're like, hey, they could have been good players for Alabama this year. Yeah, but were they superstars? And the answer is no. None of them were. Yeah, I really like Quay Russaw, but he stayed hurt and he got passed up by Yanze Pierre. Well, I really like James Smith. I really feel like he could be disruptive playmaker for Alabama on the defensive front. Yeah, maybe so, but he hasn't done it yet, and he's been basically in the starting rotation for 3 years now. And so and then you think about Keon Keeley. Well, LT Overton's gone. He could step up and be bandit one. Yeah, he could. But then they go and sign a Devin Tompkins guy who was higher rated in the portal than what Keon Keeley was. So what I'm saying is you can't just look at what Alabama lost from a numbers standpoint because the numbers do not tell the entire story. It's not about the name, it's about the production. And I know Ha Clinton Dix is famous for the quote he had and what he said on social media, about a week or so ago in terms of, point to me a player we lost in the portal that we can't replace in what they done in production. And he's absolutely right. And that's why I think it's as fans, we need to sit back and relax and say, sure, yeah, we're losing, close to 30 guys, but none of them were super productive. None of them were the star players, and none of them are, were key to the foundation of the Alabama program that Kalen DeBoer is wanting to build. And so I think as fans, we need to kind of not overblow what's happened in the portal so far and just kind of look at from a not from a number standpoint, from a quality standpoint. And I really feel like this coaching staff has done a really good job of bringing in quality players who can be depth pieces and then also sprinkling in the more high end guys who can make an impact this year, like a Devin Tompkins, like a Noah Rogers, those guys who can make an instant impact, potentially a Ty Haywood. If you bring in a Racing Delgado, that could be a potentially high impact guy. Caden Strayhorn, a guy who can compete for a starting spot on the offensive line. So that's what you got to look at from a fan perspective. Not so much focusing on the number of guys you lost to the portal, but think about the quality of talent that you're bringing to your team to spread out as good depth pieces and also instant impact players. So I think fans need to trust this coaching staff. I think they need to trust Coach DeBoer. And one reason that I have so much trust in what this coaching staff is doing from bringing a talent in standpoint is think about who the most consistent players were on the offensive side of the football for Alabama in 2025. I think you would be hard pressed to. I think you could make the argument for maybe a couple other guys, but outside of Jeremy Bernard, Josh Cuevas, and Parker Brailsford, were there three? Were there Were there any more consistent players on the offensive side of the ball than those three guys? I mean, I think that's a fair question to ask. What do those three guys have in common? They are Kalen DeBoer guys from Washington. They followed him from Washington to Alabama, and they became Alabama's most consistent players, most productive players for the Crimson Tide, and they're Kalen DeBoer guys. So what that tells me is, look, none of those guys were just super, super highly recruited, but this coaching staff knows what kind of guys fit what they want to do, what kind of personality they have, what kind of dedication they have, and that's the kind of guys that Coach DeBoer and Courtney Morgan and this entire coaching staff is kind of going after to trying to fill out their roster. And you gotta also remember you can only play you start 11 guys on each side of the ball. Alabama has got plenty of talent returning on both sides of the football. And look, I know there's going to be some great position battles that we'll kind of dissect and break down throughout the entire offseason, but there's still plenty of returning talent that has experience in Tuscaloosa on both sides of the football. And, getting guys like Jan Pierre, like Bray Hubbard, Keon Sabb, those guys back. AK Deer announced he's coming back as well to Alabama. That's huge from a team chemistry standpoint and guys who have played some more than others, but you have plenty of talent coming back from Alabama. And Alabama's the Coach DeBoer and Courtney Morgan are using this portal more to build upon the depth that they have and also sprinkling in a mix of guys who can make an instant impact. And I continue to point to guys that, along the offensive line, Noah Rogers, I think, is an instant impact guy. And I really like Devin Tompkins as well to be an instant impact player. Also, Caleb Woodson, the linebacker from Virginia Tech, could be a potential impact player right away for the Crimson Tide as well, kind of giving that linebacker core a good sense of experience in that room because you're losing your top three guys and Deontay Lawson, Justin Jefferson, and Nikai Hill Green. So, look, Alabama's portal losses are many, without question. But I do think it's overblown from the standpoint of worrying about the overall health of the roster. And I think the way this coaching staff looks at it is I would rather build a roster on guys that want to be here, guys that want to develop here, and then sprinkle in those veteran players here and there along the roster through the portal to build on the foundation you have already built through high school and through roster retainment. So don't overblow what's happened in the portal for Alabama because I think from a roster standpoint they're going to be just fine. There's plenty of experience coming back, and when you think about experience coming back, to me, this defense for Alabama from a secondary standpoint, man, you're returning Xavier Brown, you're returning Dijon Lee, Bray Hubbard, Keon Sabb, Red Morgan. Your top five guys are all back. And that's huge for your defense. Getting Jan Pierre back is huge. London Simmons back. You bringing in guys like Devin Tompkins. Jeremiah Beeman's coming back after an injury in 2025. A really solid defensive lineman who, really busted onto the scene in the bowl game against Michigan before, suffering the season-ending injury. Uh, you know, in the early part of the 2025 season before. I think it was before the first game, actually. I don't even think he played one snap for Alabama this year. I think he was hurt leading up to the first game against Florida State. So there's plenty of returning talent in that secondary now that Keon Sabb and Bray Hubbard and all those guys are coming back. And of course, when you have a secondary, it makes everything a little bit easier on defense. And I think if Alabama can continue to develop depth along the defensive line, you're going to feel better about the defense coming into the 2026 season. So uh, don't fret the number of losses. Think about it from a quality standpoint, not a quantity standpoint. And like I mentioned, Alabama didn't really lose anybody that was just super productive. You lost some household names for Alabama fans, but none that were just super, super productive for the Crimson Tide. So, no need to panic or overblow what's happened to Alabama so far throughout the transfer portal. And just a kind of reminder, once again, today is the final day that guys can enter. There still could be a couple guys, who knows? We'll kind of wait and see on that could leave Alabama and enter the portal before today wraps up. But like I said, they have plenty of time to enroll and sign with Alabama because that second part of this spring semester doesn't start to around, I think, February 13th is the date. I'm not exactly sure on the date, but it's mid February. Christian Conservatives, Cha-ching. He's somebody we have a lot of fun with in the comment section. Glad you're here. Appreciate it. Uh, any questions, guys, before we start to kind of wind down? Once again, we are powered by the Believe Network. So if you are on the podcast side, make sure you subscribe and download there. We are presented by FanDuel now, which is pretty cool to kind of they're going to be with us throughout the entire 20 year calendar year of 2026. Kind of excited to roll that out. We'll be doing some more betting and odds things through FanDuel. So if you're interested in betting, check out FanDuel. We would greatly appreciate that. But if nobody has anything else to add, I'm gonna start wrapping things up with a bow. Appreciate you guys for watching. I know this was kind of a last minute live. I had a few minutes before I had to get ready to go pick up my kids from school and kind of get ready for some high school basketball that we got going on tonight here in our small town. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support. Like I said, I think it was our last episode. December was our best month ever, both on the YouTube side and the podcast side. So we appreciate that more than you could ever imagine. That is kind of what helped launched us into this new deal that we have with FanDuel. So we greatly appreciate all the support. January is now blowing December out of the water, and we cannot thank you guys enough for all the support. It means the world to us. We do this for fun. We love Alabama, and we just love chopping it up and talking Bama football. So if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe. We would appreciate that. Looking forward to another episode coming up this weekend. I'm going to get with Jake either tomorrow or Sunday, and we'll get another episode out as well. But for Stacey Blackwood, this has been Tide Talk Live. We'll see you real soon. Roll Tide.